friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Mama Me here. In today's video, I want to talk about the weirdest pregnancy symptoms that no one talked about. In my previous pregnancy, I definitely experienced a lot of the common pregnancy symptoms such as fatigue, nausea, but there are also a lot of weird pregnancy symptoms, especially early pregnancy symptoms that no one talked about. So in today's video, I want to share with y'all. And also, if this is the first time you're in my channel, make sure you subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you won't miss out any future content and really help me out to reach my 1,000 subscriber goal. And let's get started. Alright, so the first weird pregnancy symptom that I experienced was very weird, vivid dreams. It's like crazy dreams that every single night of sleep I experienced. In my previous 2 pregnancies, I experienced zombie dreams, which is a little scary, but at the same time, in every single dream, I felt this urge to go to the bathroom, which is because the frequency of urination at the beginning of my pregnancy. And these vivid dreams just sustained and continued for a very, very long time. Almost my entire pregnancy, I experienced this weird, vivid dreams. And that is definitely the first telltale sign that I had, knowing that, hey, I was pregnant before even having a positive pregnancy test. The second pregnancy symptoms that I experienced was low blood pressure. Yes, I think in almost every pregnancy, almost everyone worry about high blood pressure, hypertension, preeclampsia, especially in the 3rd trimester. And I have actually a lot of friends who had to be induced because of preeclampsia or hypertension. However, in the 1st trimester, when I first found out that I was pregnant, like in my 4 weeks pregnancy, 5 weeks pregnancy, the first symptom that I actually had was low blood pressure. So I went online. It is definitely something that people don't talk about a lot, but if you're like me who never had hypertension before, but if you have hypotension, if you had low blood pressure somewhere in your life, low blood pressure in the 1st trimester, early pregnancy, and I actually looked it up. The reason for that was because your blood volume just rapidly increased at the beginning of your pregnancy, and there's like a different fluid retention and things like that, and your body is readjusting to pumping all of this blood to all of your limbs, to your head. So I felt super lightheaded at the beginning of my pregnancy, especially when I first found out that I was pregnant at 4 to 7 weeks is when I had the most low blood pressure. I felt like every day I'm like dead. And I actually talked to my doctor. We did extensive check with my heart, with everything else, and she's like, first of all, you need to take extra iron, you need to eat more extra red meat, and second of all, make sure you are hydrated, make sure you take electrolytes, not just water. So what my remedy of that was to take electrolytes. It really helped me in my 1st trimester. So talk to your doctor. I guess not everyone experienced it, that's why it's not talked about by a lot of people, but in the 1st trimester my blood pressure was very low, but it slowly increased starting in the 2nd trimester. The 3rd weird symptom was actually sinus infections, congestions, running nose. I thought I was sick. I was like, maybe it's allergies, maybe I was sick, but there is no way I was sick for like 3 to 5 months. So I actually talked to my midwife. I had an OB/GYN and had a midwife working together. So I talked to my midwife. Apparently, sinus infection is more common during pregnancy. Apparently, when you're pregnant, you had extra fluid that you're carrying, and you're also preparing for breastfeeding and things like that. So there are extra fluid in my body that I have seasonal allergies every single year, but when I had that seasonal allergies, it was way worse than before. I was always feeling congested. I was feeling like running nose. I always felt like a little puffy. So I was like, what the heck? Am I really sick? I was like going to my doctor, going to my OB. I've never experienced seasonal allergies that bad, except for the year that I was pregnant. So that is actually something that people don't always talk about, but if you had, like if you're prone to sinus infection, if you have seasonal allergies during pregnancy, like the extra fluid in my body, it definitely made it way worse. The next pregnant symptom that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, especially in the 1st trimester, very early on, like even before the missed period, was a lot of cramping. I think some people actually talk about it in the implantation stage. People are like, yes, you may have experienced some cramping during the implantation. Technically, you're not supposed to feel it because it's basically a small group of cells that's implanted to uterus. But apparently, it may irritate your uterus. You may have a little cramp, a little bit bleeding. But in addition to the implantation cramps, I actually had cramps my entire first trimester. And I actually had a friend who recently was pregnant, and she reached out. She was like so worried in her early pregnancy, around 7 to 8 weeks before she went to the doctor to get an ultrasound. She was like, I'm so worried because I keep having these cramps. I don't know if it's like a miscarriage or whatever. So I did have crazy cramps during my miscarriage, but the miscarriage cramp was way worse than period cramps, versus the first trimester cramps without miscarriage was actually this pre-period cramps that you feel like it's there, it's uncomfortable but not painful, that you don't need to take a painkiller or whatever for it. It's like uncomfortably cramping but not period cramps. So this is something that I experienced in both of my pregnancy. One ended up in miscarriage. The miscarriage cramps was like crazy hurt. It's like versus the actual first trimester pregnancy cramp was like cramping on and off, and it was doable, tolerable, but it feels there. It feels like something is going on in my uterus. So that is the cramps that I experienced in my entire first trimester. A little bit beginning of the second trimester. But once the baby started growing bigger, I felt like the cramps slowed down. I feel more of the kicking rather than cramps. And that cramps came back right before I gave labor. Next weird pregnancy symptom that I don't think people talk a lot was bloating. I think a lot of people don't talk about it because when you're pregnant, you feel like your belly is growing. So when you're bloated, you feel like, that's normal because my belly is growing, right? But I always feel like, hey, I have a small belly. And then one of my friends who had multiple babies before, she's like, no, you're only 7 weeks, it's the bloating. I was like, now that you talk about it. And I never had constipation or whatever, because a lot of my friends, they said when they're pregnant they were very constipated, especially in first trimester. I never had that problem, but my bloatedness was just so bad that I just felt like, oh, my belly grew immediately in the first 7 weeks of pregnancy. And I was like, wow, I can see that my belly is growing a lot. And they're like, no, you're just bloated. So I feel like I've never been so bloated in my life until I was pregnant. And it started from the first trimester, very, very early on. And that is actually one of the early signs of pregnancy for me. But it's also very similar to the PMS symptoms. So that's why it's very hard to determine, hey, I'm pregnant because I'm bloated, or my period is coming and I'm bloated. The next, especially in very early pregnancy, was that I felt a crazy brain fog. In my first trimester early pregnancy, I felt like the brain fog that I had was way worse than like when I had COVID. And the worst thing is I felt like the brain fog never truly went away. Even during the postpartum, I also feel this like subtle brain fog. I think it was the hormone-induced brain fog. But it was so bad that I remember in my very first pregnancy, which ended up in miscarriage, but in the very early on pregnancy, I think I was like 5 weeks pregnant, and I wore 2 different shoes to work, and I didn't realize that until I walked from my car to my office, and I was like, damn, I had 2 different shoes and on each foot, which was crazy, and I've never done that in my life. The next pregnancy symptoms I think a lot of women experienced, but not in every single pregnancy, was headaches. Specifically to me, it was migraines. It's either this side or this side, mainly on the right side because I have a lot of tension. It's usually hormone induced. I experienced both, but honestly, I feel like depending on the pregnancy, you may have experienced migraine headaches in one of your pregnancy, but then you don't experience in another pregnancy. It has something to do with the hormones, it has something to do with the tensions and the sleep, and it has something to do with like how your body reacts to the hormones as well. So I experience bad migraines all the time during my PMS times, but the pregnancy migraines was way worse than my PMS times. In my first pregnancy, I experienced a lot of migraines and headaches in my first trimester, but in my second pregnancy, I actually experienced a lot in my second trimester, which is very, very different. So every single person is different. The next pregnancy symptom is very weird. It's actually the day I realized I had a boy. It's crazy. I've had friends and family telling me that I had dreams that they are having a girl or having a boy. So how did I know I was having a boy before I even did some testing? It was actually the fact that I am not a football lover. I do not watch football. If I watch any sports, it's usually basketball. I do not even understand football. It's just, I didn't grow up in America, so American football is just such a new concept to me. I just never got into it. But during my previous pregnancy, in a 10th week, I had this enormous urge to watch football. I do not know why. Like, I was like, no, I want to watch it. Like, my husband was like, you don't watch this. I'm like, no, I am watching. Like, I'm trying to, and I Google all of the rules and stuff, and I was just really into football. I want to watch every single game. I want to watch the college football. Every time there's a football game, I want to watch it, and you would rewatch it. And my husband was like, huh, you're just being very weird because you're never into football. And I was like, maybe I'm having a boy and he wants to watch it? I don't understand. I end up actually having a boy. And after pregnancy, my husband was telling his family, he was like, oh, Ming actually watches football now, blah, 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 blah. Let's, watch football together. I'm like, actually, I'm not into it right now. Like, now if you play a game of football, I just like, I get bored so easily. And my husband was like, so the football thing is just a pregnancy thing? I was like, maybe, I don't know, I can't control myself. So that was actually the weirdest pregnancy symptom. It's like suddenly I really wanted to watch football and I was like, maybe I'm having a boy. And I end up actually having a boy, and now that I'm not pregnant, after pregnancy, after deliver the boy, I don't want to watch football anymore. All right, another weird pregnancy symptom. This is also pertaining to early pregnancy in my first trimester. I think right after I found out that I was pregnant was the fact that my biological clock just magically shifted earlier. I am never a morning person. There were times in my life where I pushed myself to wake up early just to get things done, to get productive, but I always end up falling back to like waking up a little bit later. And I did a genetic test. My natural biological clock is I wake up at 8:30. Like, if I don't have any clock, waking up at 8:30 is the actual ideal for me just because of my genetics. Maybe that's how the schedule is with my ancestors. That was my schedule actually before I was pregnant. But I think right at 4 weeks, right when I first found out I was pregnant, I magically just started waking up at 7. So my whole biological clock just shifted 1 hour early. Like, I was waking up between 7 to 7:30, and I just have no idea why. Like, and it's to the point that I didn't need an alarm. I just naturally wake up at 7 to 7:30 every single day and go for a walk. I was like, this is the best schedule that I've ever had without an alarm. During my third trimester is when I had insomnia. I had trouble falling asleep, and I just had trouble like waking up in the morning as well. But before the third trimester, in my first trimester, especially like right when, like, after the implantation, right when the pregnancy hormone kicked in, it was when my biological clock just shifted 1 hour earlier, which is very interesting. And now it's shifted back. And apparently I looked it up. It says when you're pregnant, there are certain signals, there are certain changes in your brain waves. That's why you had a lot of dreams. That's why, because your REM sleep is a little longer, I think. And another thing is it's more likely that you remember the dreams, and it's more likely that you wake up early because the whole sleep cycle changed. So you end up waking up a little bit earlier because the sleep cycle. I was like, huh, that's very, very interesting. If I didn't do a pregnancy test, that could be my early pregnancy symptoms. So yeah, these are the weird pregnancy symptoms that I experienced, especially early pregnancy symptoms in my previous pregnancies. And of course, I experienced other symptoms such as nausea, such as food aversions, food cravings, lower back pain, such as sciatica, such as like the common pregnancy symptoms that everyone was talking about. But definitely there are so much of like random pregnancy symptoms that I didn't think about it until I actually experienced them, and they were actually the telltale signs that I was pregnant. So we're trying for baby number 2, and hopefully I will get lucky, and hopefully I won't have another miscarriage. That was very emotional. My first pregnancy ended up in a miscarriage, so I really hope that the next one will work out. So yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You can really help me out, and I will see you in my next one. Bye! Good luck to anyone who's trying to conceive right now.